It usually doesn't start as a fight, and that is precisely what makes it dangerous, because it begins in ordinary places where you never expect armor to be necessary. In a kitchen, while pretending everything is fine, in a quiet car ride where silence feels heavier than words, or in a text message that arrives at midnight when your defenses are already worn down, and after weeks of rehearsing the sentence in your head, you finally say it, "That hurt me," not as an accusation, but as a truth. And instead of empathy, you are met with a courtroom where your tone is interrogated, your words are rearranged, and suddenly the other person becomes a lawyer, a judge, and the victim all at once. And if you have ever been told you are too sensitive right after being emotionally bulldozed, understand this clearly. You are not weak, you are not broken, you are not crazy, but you are using the wrong strategy, because this is not a normal disagreement between two people seeking understanding. This is what psychologists describe as an asymmetrical conflict, where you are playing a game of connection and resolution, while the other person is playing a game of dominance and control, the same conversation with completely different objectives. And the moment you truly grasp that difference, everything changes. Because emotionally intelligent people instinctively respond to tension with more explanations, more logic, and more emotional honesty, believing clarity will soften the situation, when in reality, all that effort becomes fuel. And this insight matters deeply to me because for many years, I found myself in relationships with people who were not openly abusive, not obviously cruel, not spreading rumors or attacking me directly, yet their attitude toward life, toward work, and toward other people slowly leaked into my emotional space, quietly shaping my mood, draining my motivation, and affecting my psychological balance. And the real danger was not what they did, but how long I stayed emotio, nowly exposed without reevaluating the relationship or my way of engaging with people like that in order to protect my own mental safety. Because toxic dynamics do not always arrive as explosions. Sometimes they arrive as atmospheres that subtly change the air you breathe. And once you recognize that, the first real shift is installing a new operating system based on behavioral psychology rather than emotional hope, built on two principles: detachment and strategy, because toxic personalities do not operate on logic or mutual respect, they operate on supply. Meaning your anger, your tears, your long messages, explaining yourself are not communication to them. They are stimulation. They are dopamine. And like any conditioned loop, they provoke, you react, they feel powerful, reward delivered, and behavior reinforced. Which is why the first practical tool is the gray rock method, grounded in the psychological principle of extinction, where behaviors that are no longer rewarded eventually fade. And in real life, this looks far simpler than people expect. Imagine a coworker who constantly makes passive-aggressive comments about your performance during meetings, hoping you will defend yourself or over-explain. The old pattern is reacting emotionally or correcting them in detail, while gray rock means responding with something neutral like noted or I'll take that into account, and then moving on without tone, without extra energy, without visible irritation. And at first, this often feels unnatural or even unfair. But over time, the person learns that provoking you no longer delivers stimulation. And here is where most people fail, because when the reaction stops, escalation begins, a phenomenon known as an extinction burst, similar to shaking a vending machine harder when it does not deliver. And in real relationships, this may look like sharper comments, louder accusations, or a sudden emotional outburst designed to pull you back into engagement. And if you give in during this haze, you teach the other person that increased pressure works, which is why holding the line matters, yet total emotional silence is not always practical when you work with someone, co-parent with someone, or share professional responsibilities, which is where yellow rock becomes essential, a refined version of gray rock that maintains politeness while stripping emotion, responding only to logistics and facts while ignoring attacks. For example, when a colleague sends an email accusing you of never caring about the team and always making things difficult, a yellow rock response would simply acknowledge the task, confirm deadlines, and ask for the necessary files, nothing more and nothing less. And the psychological value here is not only internal calm, but external credibility. Because manipulators often rely on portraying you as uncooperative to others, and yellow rock creates a paper trail that makes you appear calm, reasonable, and cooperative while giving them nothing energetically, and when the person involved is family and leaving is not an option, the strategy shifts again toward compassionate detachment, which is often misunderstood because it is not emotional numbness but emotional containment, visualizing a glass wall that allows you to see and hear without absorbing emotional chaos. And a simple real-world example is a parent who constantly complains, criticizes, or dramatizes everyday problems instead of arguing or trying to fix their worldview. Compassionate detachment means listening politely while internally reminding yourself that their emotional state does not need to become yours, paired with a cognitive reframe that asks, not why are they doing this to me, but what must it feel like to live inside a mind that requires constant control or constant negativity, a shift that moves your brain from personal reactivity to analytical distance. While remembering this perspective is not an invitation to rescue, because empathy cannot fix broken circuitry, and love cannot reprogram systems that do not want to change, which is why the glass wall also protects you from your own savior reflex. And nearly every empathetic person eventually falls into the JADE trap, justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining. Believing that clarity will resolve misunderstanding, when in high conflict dynamics, explanations become ammunition. And a simple everyday example is when someone accuses you of being inconsiderate and you immediately launch into a detailed explanation of your intentions, your schedule, and your stress, unknowingly handing them new angles to criticize, which is why a firewall is necessary in the form of the BIFF protocol. Brief, informative, friendly, and firm. Responses that communicate boundaries without emotional hooks, such as replying, "I'm not available to discuss this now, we can talk about logistics later," which forces interactions to either become functional or end. And beyond communication tactics, protecting your sanity requires anchoring reality itself, because gaslighting works by rewriting history until memory feels unreliable, making external documentation essential. Logging dates, times, and exact words, rather than emote. I know interpretations, especially in work or family disputes. So when denial occurs, you do not argue with recollection, but reference facts. And equally important is trusting somatic signals, because the body often recognizes psychological danger before the mind does. When words sound kind but the chest tightens, when smiles coincide with exhaustion or unease, the nervous system is detecting incongruence faster than conscious thought, and learning to trust those signals is a form of psychological self-respect. And ultimately, this is not about winning arguments, because you will not. It is about reclaiming mental real estate, detaching from supply, chaos, and distorted narratives until you slowly see yourself clearly again. And while understanding this intellectually is easy and executing it under pressure is difficult, preparation changes outcomes, which is why scripting responses and mentally rehearsing boundaries reduces stress responses, allowing you to act deliberately rather than reactively. And if this resonates, know that you are not alone, that your experience is valid, and that sometimes the most powerful move is not confrontation, not persuasion, but disengagement, because you do not need to fight to win. You need to stop playing a game that was never designed to be fair.